Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one. Welcome to the Salt Mine Q&A for, what month is it? November, that's right, yes. And also if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, welcome to Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles. No announcements to make today, or if there are, I've completely forgotten, so we're just going to crack straight on with the questions, get this show on the road, and see what happens. So the first question, oh yes, I did check out the questions about 10 minutes before actually popping onto the Discord, and I had a quick look. First question here from Akiaki Kiyakaha. Have you heard of this game, Jingles? Thank goodness you're here. And have you thought of doing a video series of it if you have an empty schedule? I do not have an empty schedule. However, I did take a quick look at the link that you posted, and this game looks really weird. It's currently got a Metacritic score of 90. I mean, I watched that he linked I'll put a link in the description so you guys can check this out on Steam when you're watching this video. He put a link, and there's a sort of couple of minute long gameplay video, and it just does not. I watched it and I still had no idea what the game was about, but it's pretty cheap. I literally just went and bought it on Steam, downloaded and installed it, and it's only a couple of gigabytes. It doesn't cost a lot. I think I'm going to have a look. Whether or not, I mean, I'm backed up with, I've got to finish Star Wars Outlaws, even though most people don't care. Obviously there's World of Tanks, there's World of Warships. I really want to do more Forever Winter. And Sea Power, Naval Combat in the Missile Age, is coming into proper early access this month, maybe even this week. And I really need to get more videos on that done. So I am kind of backed up at the moment on stuff to do. But this looks like the sort of thing I might, maybe. I mean, I'm definitely going to play it. I've just bought it and downloaded it. But I'll have a look, and it might sneak into a bonus Sunday video every now and then, depending on how much I enjoy it. But I mean, it's been well received. Like I say, a Metacritic score of 90. So I'm going to take a look at that. Thank you. Next one from Helix Folks. Jingles, with Amazon acquiring MGM. Oh, I had not heard about that. So MGM, obviously, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, the movie studio responsible for stuff like RoboCop and Stargate. He says, are you looking forward to any MGM shows that might have been sitting on for years? Kind of yes and kind of no, because Amazon have got a bit of a mixed track record with regards to TV shows from movie adaptations or game adaptations. Amazon were the ones that did the Fallout TV show, weren't they? That was pretty good. I really enjoyed that. But then again, Amazon were also the ones that do Rings of Power, which absolutely sucks. So, well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if you've got yourself an Amazon account, you can watch them for free on well, not free, you're paying a monthly subscription for it, but you can watch them anyway, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything that you're not already paying. If they're good, they're good. If they're not, well, you haven't lost out, and you don't have to watch them. But yeah, a RoboCop TV show, that could be good. The thing is, something like a RoboCop TV show would be kind of expensive, although not as expensive as the Rings of Power. And you know, they keep ploughing on with that, regardless of the terrible ratings. So you never know. It'd be nice to see Stargate back. Although that's the thing. I mean, the original Stargate TV show was amazingly good. The spin-offs, not so much. They kind of captured the lightning in the bottle with the cast and the writers of the first Stargate TV show. And then it all kind of, what was his name? The guy that played the Colonel. I can't remember the actor's name, but he left. I mean, various cast members left, and then it just wasn't the same. It was very much the cast that made it. So, fingers crossed, like I said, if you're paying for an Amazon Prime subscription anyway, and they turn out to be good, great. And if they suck, well, you haven't lost anything, and you don't have to watch them. Oh, and Richard Dean Anderson, that was him, the name of the actor. He was amazing. I thought nobody was going to beat Kurt Russell from the Stargate movie, and then Richard Dean Anderson got cast in the TV show and made the role his own. Played him completely differently. He was amazing. Anyway, moving on. Next question from Yamatog 2. What has been the angriest you have been during your time in the Navy? And what was the angriest someone else has been at you in the Navy? What's the anger? Okay, I can answer the second one very easily. But what's the angriest I've ever been? Honestly, I don't know. I can't remember getting particularly pissed off at anything. I'll have to have a think about the first half of the question and come back to you later. But the angriest somebody has ever been at me in the Navy. Okay. So this was when I was on HMS. Yes, HMS Brace. My first ship. It was based in Plymouth. And I can't remember where we were going or what we were doing. But we were obviously deploying somewhere because the ship was out at the ammunition buoys. So you can't load ammunition on board a ship when it's alongside the jetty in the dockyard because, stuff blows up. So when you're loading ammo, the ship goes out to the ammunition buoys, and then a barge will come with a crane and all of the ammo on it, and you'll do it out in the middle of the harbour where it's nice and safe. So if you explode, you're not going to kill anybody else. At the time, I was a radio operator. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've told this story before, Mingles.business, but it was a long time ago. So it's a funny story, so I'll tell it again. Now, one of the jobs of the radio operators is all the ceremonial stuff, anything to do with flags. So every morning you would have to do the ceremony of colours, where you raise the white ensign on the quarterdeck. And every night you would have to do the ceremony of sunset, where you lower the flag. You call it waking the Queen up and putting the Queen to bed. Now, when you were on duty, when you were the duty radio operator, alongside, it's your responsibility to do colours and do sunset. But when the ship's at sea, and for the purposes of ceremonies, at sea basically means when you're not alongside in harbour. So when you're at the ammunition and buoys, you're technically at sea. You go into a watchkeeping system. And it's the responsibility of the people who had the long morning watch, which is from like 2 in the morning till 8 in the morning, to prep the flags. So you've got these 2 big whitewash canvas bags, and the Union Jack goes into one of them, and that gets bent onto the jackstaff right at the forecastle, pointy end of the ship. And then the white ensign goes into the ensign bag, and that you already know where this is going, don't you? And it's your responsibility to put the ensign bag on the ensign staff on the quarterdeck at the back end of the ship, the arse end. It's not your responsibility to actually do the ceremony. It's the oncoming watch, right, the forenoon watch that takes over at 8 and mans the communications office until midday. It's their responsibility to actually do colours in the morning, and then they come to the communications office and you do a handover and they take over and you go to bed. So as I was on the long morning watch, I had to put the ensign in the ensign bag and put it on the ensign staff on the quarterdeck, and the Union Jack into the jack bag and put it onto the jack staff right up at the forecastle. And I may have... There's only one way you can get it wrong. Let me just put it that way. So anyway, 8 o'clock, quartermaster makes the pipe, tension on the upper deck, face aft and salute, colours. So, and everybody was on the upper deck because the ammunition barge everybody was already starting with the ammunitioning process. So there was like at least 100 of the ship's company on the upper deck. The captain was on the bridge, everybody was up. Then we got a phone call. Actually, no, there wasn't a phone call. It was radio operator Charlton, quarterdeck, at the rush. So I knew something had gone wrong. So I ran down to the quarterdeck, and all I could see was the officer of the day not looking very happy at all. The master at arms screaming at the duty radio operator who was there with this Union Jack halfway out of the ensign bag, halfway up the ensign staff, absolutely shitting his pants. So straight away I knew what I'd done. I ran, whipped the ensign off the clips and the line, wrapped it into a bundle, pegged it forward up the starboard waist, right up to the forecastle, where I could see the other duty radio operator with all of the seamen working the forecastle part of the ship, pissing themselves laughing. And this poor guy, Pasty Portwood was his name, he was just sort of looking into the jack bag and shaking his head in disbelief. And, while the communications yeoman is out on the bridge wing, right, screaming at him, get the flag up, Get the fucking flag, get it up. He didn't realise what was going on. So we're frantically trying to swap the flags around. And bearing in mind, once I've got the jack on the jack staff, I then have to take the ensign and leg it all the way back down to the quarterdeck and get that done. And then at that precise moment, the quartermaster makes another pipe, tension on the upper deck, face to port and salute, flag officer Plymouth. So the admiral in charge of the Plymouth Navy base just happened to be sailing past in his launch at the precise moment when I fucked up the ceremony of colours in front of an audience of hundreds. I think that is easily the angriest anybody else has ever been at me. The communications yeoman, the captain. I managed to piss everybody off. My punishment for that one was for the next 3 months I had to practice putting the ensign and the jack on the correct staff at 7 o'clock every morning for the next 3 months. So that was fun. Fortunately, most of the next 3 months we were at sea, and you don't do colours full sunset when you're at sea. It's only when you're alongside. But it basically meant that every time we were on port visit anywhere, I was up at 7 every morning, making sure that I got it right. So that was fun. Anyway, moving on. Next question from Battlefield Boom. Good morning, beloved sea-loyal sailor. Yes, I'm recording. Fine. All right. For how long after you left the Navy have you kept up with new ships being added to the Royal Navy, or any Navy in the world for that matter? How up to date are you with modern ships and equipment? Also says, would you like to know more? Yes, I get the Starship Troopers reference. Honestly, I kind of kept up to date for the first year or two, but yeah, it's been like 13 years now since I left the Navy. I'm aware that the Type 45 destroyers are mostly fixed and have the bugs worked out of the system by now. Other than that, I really don't keep up to date. I know that... Actually, I don't even know how many Type 45s we have. I know they're good ships, and they're way better than the Type 42s that they replaced. The Type 42s are the ones that I served on. Type 42s were designed in the 1960s. And they were really good for the job that they were designed to do, shoot down slow and high-flying Tu-95 Bear bombers. But you know, the threat kind of evolved a bit since the 1960s, and so the missile systems that they have were great for that job. Not much good for anything else. I think they only had something like a 12% hit probability on something like an Exocet, a sea-skimming missile. So as air defence destroyers go, I loved them. They were great ships, but weren't really that good at doing their jobs anymore. So the Type 45s are really good. The missile system that they have is vastly superior to Sea Dart. But other than that, I really haven't been keeping up to date. Normally, if I want to keep up to date, I go and watch Subbrief. And he does amazing videos on all kinds of naval vessels, usually with a focus on submarines, but he does surface ships as well. And he's recently been getting into the new Sea Power game as well from Microprose, which I really need to do more videos on. But anyway, moving on. Next question from MinerTree93. Dear Overlord Jingles, your parents are loving the body pillows from... Oh yeah, that's right. I was posed a question. 2 equally horrible choices. And I went with the body pillows for my parents. Question for the week. For some weird reason, the British government declared war on, pick a country, and they felt that it was serious enough that they called you back up into full military service. What rank do you think they would give you, and what job would they assign you for such a conflict? Funny old thing. Every year I get an annual reporting letter from the Navy, because you leave the Navy and you go into the volunteer reserve. So if the shit hits the fan, I could technically be recalled to active service. So exactly the sort of situation that MinerTree93 is talking about. But, and also when I left the Navy, I got an immediate pension. So I get £750 a month, just for being in the Navy for 22 years. And then when I hit official retirement age, 65, that gets index linked and gets a lot more valuable. But I've been getting paid this pension every month. And about a week ago, I got a letter from the Navy saying that I needed, because obviously I moved, I've managed to, I'm now an actual homeowner for the first time, and I'm in this new place, and the Navy was saying in order to continue paying my pension I had to confirm my address, because they had to contact a tracing agency They had to pay a tracing agency to find out what my new address was. Well, I've been here nearly 3 years now, and I keep getting an annual reporting letter, which I was fairly sure that I had actually changed and updated my address details on it, sent it back to them. So I've had at least 2 annual reporting letters since my change of address. And yet here the Navy are saying they need me to confirm my address, and they've had to pay an outside company to track me down in order to get my address confirmed. And if I don't send this letter back confirming that I live where I live, they're going to stop my pension. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll fill this out, and sent it back, and all good. 2 days later, I get my annual reporting letter to the correct address with all of the correct details on it, asking me if anything's changed. No, nothing's changed. This is all correct. So the left hand just doesn't seem to know what the right hand's doing. I've got one Navy department saying, where have you gone? We've had to pay somebody to find out. Well, just ask the department next door, because they keep sending me the annual bloody reporting letter to the correct address, and no, nothing's changed, which does not give me a warm, fuzzy feeling for the competence of the Navy bureaucracy if I end up having to be recalled. Although I shouldn't get recalled, because it's now been more than 10 years since I left. And honestly, here's the thing. Because he was asking, what rank do you think? Well, they'd make me an able seaman. And what job would they assign you to? Well, that's the thing. Because when I left the Navy, I was what they call a writer. It's next to seaman. It's the oldest profession in the Navy. Because back in like the 1700s, having somebody on board who could read and write was very uncommon, and it was quite an important job. But while I was in, they changed the name of the branch. But they're constantly doing all this. We call it the Good Ideas Club. They thought that all of the logistics branch, we used to be called the supply department. Then they decided, no, we need to modernise. Now you're the logistics department, which is okay. It's fair enough. So there was my branch, the writers, stores accountants, stewards, and cooks, chefs. So we comprised the logistics department. Then they decided that they had to keep modernising again, and they were going to change the names of all of the branches. Now, get this, I'm not making this shit up. So I was a writer. Now, you don't have to be in the Navy to have a reasonable good guess at exactly what a writer does. The stores accountant, well, yeah, okay, they handle the stores. Chef, it's obvious what a chef does. Steward, it's obvious what a steward does. But they decided they were going to change our branch titles. And so, and the reason given was, 1, we need to modernise, and 2, civilians have no idea what a writer is. Well, I'm sure they could make a fairly educated guess, but okay, whatever. Civilians don't really care what writers are, but fine, whatever. So in order to make the logistics branch more relatable to civilians, presumably for recruitment purposes, what are you going to change my branch title to? Because at the moment I'm writer, what are you going to change me to? Okay, you are going to be a logistician personnel. And that's a bit of a mouthful, so we're just going to abbreviate it to logs pers. That was their bright idea. I didn't even know what a logs pers did, let alone a civilian. But then the other thing that they did was they changed the pay and accounting system. So at the time, the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force all had their own personnel administration systems. In the Navy, it was called PAS, which was Personnel Administration System, and it was Windows-based. Now, as a Windows-based program, if you know how to use any Microsoft Office program, or if you just need to know how to use Windows, then you knew how to use PAS, because it was a Windows-based system, drop-down menus and all that sort of stuff. Even if you weren't a trained writer, you could stick somebody down in front of a computer with PAS on it, give them a copy of the Naval Pay Regulations, and they would be able to do my job. Really, really slowly, but they could figure it out, yeah? So they decided, the Bright Ideas Club thought, well, we need a joint personnel administration system, one that's the same across the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. And yeah, okay, yeah, I can see the benefit of that. And so they gave the job to Oracle. And they came out with this thing called JPA, the Joint Personnel Administration System. JPA was such a mess, and this was brought in just as I was leaving. JPA was such a mess. They didn't release it across all 3 services at the same time. They kind of trialled it on the Royal Air Force, those poor bastards. I got sent for a 2-day course when they were introducing it into the Navy to teach me how to use JPA. The instructors who were supposed to be teaching us how to use it didn't know how to use it. They were just basically reading from a script. And if we didn't understand the script, there was no point in asking them any questions because they didn't understand either. That's just how shitty this whole rollout was. The system itself was bugged to hell. You needed to go on a 2-day course just to figure out how to search for somebody on the system. It wasn't. It was so ridiculously counterintuitive. Fortunately for me, I was leaving just at the time that this system was coming in. But there's the problem. If the shit does hit the fan and I do get recalled, what job would they put me in? Because I couldn't do my job. Personnel and pay administration, leave, travel, all that sort of thing, because I don't know how to use the new system. So I would basically just be manual labour. And I'm 54. I'm diabetic. Well, technically I'm no longer diabetic, but I'm pre-diabetic. So dietary restrictions would be a bit of an issue. And also I'm a cancer survivor. And I've got my check-up colonoscopy for a year after my cancer surgery in May next year. So honestly, I think I'm pretty safe because they wouldn't have a job for me to do. And, my medical situation, while I feel fine, I would require specific medical conditions. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty safe because the job that I was trained to do just technically doesn't really exist in the Navy anymore, or it's changed out of all proportion, and I'd have to go through months of training, by which point anything serious enough for them to call me back would probably have been decided. Where are we now? Having a look at the questions. Oh, P.S. he says, I'm in another Discord group and we finally answered an age-old question that has stumped experts for generations. You're supposed to put a drunken sailor in bed with a captain's daughter. Yeah, what should we do with the drunken sailor? Okay. Next question from NepNep. How are we doing for time? Ooh, 22 minutes in. Okay. Greetings once more from the United States. This evening I pose 3 questions for you. Yes, I'm recording. 2, assuming you've watched the short I shared with you. Yes, that's right, yeah. On where the CSGO recoil guy and 2 of his buddies. This was amazing. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it's absolutely incredible. CSGO recoil guy and 2 of his buddies created a functional recreation of the interior workings of a tank, right down to the gun mechanically cycling through spent ammunition, and synced it up to play World of Tanks. Yeah, this was amazing. They would have this monitor playing World of Tanks, and they would have a driver and a gunner, and they would literally have to, they had a gun breech, a working gun breech. They would have to load it and then fire. And that when they fired the gun in World of Tanks, it would eject the spent round. It was just this amazing internal tank simulator specifically built just for playing World of Tanks. It was complete overkill, but it was incredible. So his question is, if you saw a multi-person tank simulator like that using World War II tanks or War Thunder ground realistic battle at the Bovington Tank Museum, would you team up with Rita and one or two? Oh, absolutely. 100% I would do that. That looked absolutely... He'd probably be really shit at playing, but the experience would be amazing. Obviously with me as the commander in the spotter's position, because I'd be crap at anything else. 3rd one, this is a gag question that doesn't require a complex time-consuming answer. Can we consider Jingles making engine noises for the Aurorix 78 World of Tanks video as my audition for Monty Python? Yeah. That was really hard to do, by the way. My throat was raw at the end of it. People have said that I should do that every time the sound, but no. It was really, really hard work. It was worth it because it was funny as all hell, but there's no way I'm doing it again. I should have saved the sound samples so I could reuse them, but I didn't think that far ahead. Next question comes from Bishop. Salutations, mighty overlord. May your minds be ever productive and your record button be pressed for all eternity. In all seriousness, how are you feeling now, physically and emotionally, after all this year's worth of ordeals? Yeah, it has been a rough year. Have you fully built back your health? I have. See, after coming out, the surgery was amazing. I mean, the surgery itself. They wheel you in, they put you on the table, they plug you up. The anesthesiologist says, can you start counting back from 10? I can remember getting to 9. And then the next thing I knew, it's the middle of the night, and I'm in the recovery ward in agony because I'd effectively been stabbed in the stomach 5 or 6 times. But that was the Friday. I was home on the Sunday. It's just amazing. When I was growing up, that kind of surgery, you would have been in hospital for 2 months. For a start, it would have been open surgery. These days, it's keyhole surgery. And they would have kept you in until you had fully recovered. But these days, as soon as you're able to walk, they send you home, which honestly was vastly preferable, because in the ward you couldn't sleep for more than 4 hours because somebody comes around to administer drugs and do a sort of a cognitive test on you to make sure that you're not slipping into a coma or anything. So, I mean, they took fantastic care of me on the ward, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. Getting home was absolutely the best thing. The thing is, after the surgery, and don't forget, I also had diabetes, so I'd had to radically change my diet. And 3 months after that, I had more blood tests, and I've still got high blood sugar levels, but it's not in the diabetic range anymore. So I still have to watch my diet. But the combination of the surgery, the lifestyle changes, the diet changes, I felt fantastic, better than I had in years. And I still feel pretty good, although I do get the occasional stomach pain. But that's the thing, you know, people were getting stomach pains long before they got stomach cancer. So, and again, leading up to the cancer surgery, once I knew that I had cancer and I had the surgery planned in, every time I got a stomach pain, I was like, oh my God, it's the cat. Oh no, it's just a fart. You know what I mean? So you're hyper aware of anything going on in your stomach all of a sudden once you've had something that affects your stomach. And it's not necessarily anything. It could just be a fart, you know. But at the no pain, at the best, at the worst, I feel sort of mild discomfort sometimes in my stomach, which I instantly start panicking about, and then I realise, actually, no, it's probably just a fart. But I've got to check up another colonoscopy in May, 1 year after the initial surgery, where they're going to have another bougie up my ass with the old robot snake and make sure they got everything. But the surgeon was amazing. The scars are tiny. I was up and walking within 2 or 3 days of the surgery. I was home within 2 days of the surgery, so it was all good. I feel better than I have in years. Next question comes from Basement Jesus. Thanks for the question, by the way, Bishop. Next one from Basement Jesus. Maybe not an actual gnome, but a stinking Humie overlord. You, along with many other YouTubers, advertise sponsors with a lot of energy and at times with actual gusto in your feelings and voice. My question is, how often do those advertisements work? Do you or any others get a response from the sponsors when it comes to numbers and downloads or uses of a code a week after sponsoring them? He also says, NordPass is great, by the way. Everybody should use it. Yeah, it is really good. Here's the thing. We don't get contacted directly by the brands themselves. They have an advertising budget which they will give to a marketing agency. The marketing agency then reaches out to, and I hate this term, reaches out to influencers and negotiates a deal with them. So obviously the marketing agency want to pay the influencer as little as possible so that they can keep the rest of the money for themselves. I'm probably actually underselling myself, the amount I ask for, but I'm not greedy, basically, and I feel like I'm getting a fair price, and usually the marketing agency says, yeah, no problem, we'll pay you that much, which instantly tells me I'm probably worth more than I'm asking for, but what the hell. Here's the thing, the marketing agency will only come back to you asking for what they call a value add, so maybe another mention or a social media post or something, if the numbers haven't been as good as they'd hoped. And that's happened once for me. Other than that, they don't usually or at all share with you just exactly how well you are doing. And the reason for that is because if what they call the conversion rate, the number of impressions that people actually, watch the video and then click on the link or buy or download or whatever the product, if that is high, the influencers are probably going to ask them for more money. And so the marketing people never share with you exactly how well your stuff's doing. But I know it's doing well because I've only ever been asked for one value add once. And I think it's probably doing well because I don't advertise any old shit. I only advertise stuff that I actually use. I think you might be interested in using. So, I mean, I had Raid Shadow Legends in touch with me again this month. Fuck off. No. They have a stupid amount of money to throw around, by the way. I've seen a couple of other YouTubers, just for a laugh, have asked for outrageous amounts of money, and they've come back and said yes. So you could make an absolute fortune doing Raid Shadow Legends ads, but unfortunately, as long as I have my self-respect, that's never going to happen. But no, they never actually share that sort of stuff with you. Which, because otherwise the YouTubers or the Twitch live streamers or the TikTokers or whatever would probably start asking for more money. So the marketing companies have got a vested interest in not letting you know exactly how well your sponsorships are going. And I'm fine with that, as long as they pay me what I asked for, I don't care. Like I say, I'm not greedy. As long as I'm doing well enough to be able to put money into my pension and feed the cats, I really don't care. So yeah, that's the deal with that one. Oh, next one's from Aurorix78. Dear Mighty Gnome Overlord, what game will you be playing next? Any chance of a Frostpunk 2 playthrough? I've got Frostpunk 2. And yeah, that's another one that's on my list. It's like somebody was asking earlier, as the schedule that I have is kind of chock full at the moment. I've heard mixed things about Frostpunk 2, and I think, how can I put this? I've watched a couple of videos on people playing through it, reviewing it and talking about it, and I think I'd probably like it because it's different to the first Frostpunk. Which, I mean, it would have to be, because otherwise why would you make a game called Frostpunk 2? Just do DLC for Frostpunk if you're going to just do more of the same. It focuses more on the social side, managing the various different factions in the population, while it's still got the base building, game mechanics in it as well. That's not the real focus of the game. I think... Because a lot of people who played the first game have said, oh, this is nothing like the first game. I don't like this. Well, if you don't like it, fine. But it doesn't necessarily have to be just like the first game. It's Frostpunk 2. It's not Frostpunk. So I'm definitely planning on giving it a go. And hopefully it'll be good. Because the first game was absolutely incredible. So, yeah, he says, it would be glorious to see you lead the last of humanity. What could possibly go wrong? I remember playing the first one. When the superstorm arrives and you are frantically trying to keep people alive and keep the heat going, and the temperatures are plummeting down at like minus 70 degrees, and you have to send people into the mines to keep the coal coming out, to keep the generator burning, otherwise everybody's going to die, and that you've got to start making choices, because most of the people that you send into the mines probably aren't going to survive. I have very rarely felt that much adrenaline playing a game as I did at that point during the original Frostpunk. It was absolutely outstanding. But yeah, Frostpunk 2, definitely playing it, just don't know when. Like I said, I've got an awful lot on my schedule at the moment. Next question is from... I'm not pronouncing that. Bully? Something like that. Dear Overlord Jingles, good morning. My question is, do you have any book recommendations to read between watches at sea? Regarding a previous Q&A, I am not Dutch. He's from Northern Germany. Well, the Netherlands is Northern Germany, isn't it? Let's face it, the Dutch are just swamp Germans. Okay. Book recommend. I'll tell you what I'm reading at the moment. Judge Dredd, The Collected Case Files. I've got a whole bunch of them in paperback on a bookshelf. But it's been a while. It's been a couple of years, and I'd kind of forgotten that they existed. They're basically the reproductions of all the Judge Dredd stories from the 2000 AD comic, with writers like Garth Ennis, John Wagner, some amazing artists, Carlos Esquerrar, obviously, Henry Flint. Some really, really good stuff. And I kind of stopped reading them when John Wagner, who was the original, he and Carlos Esquerrar were the writer and artist who actually created Judge Dredd. When John Wagner took a bit of a back seat, and they brought in Garth Ennis. Now, I love Garth Ennis. He's written some incredible stuff. But he really, really struggled getting a handle on Judge Dredd at first, for the first year or so. So I kind of stopped reading the collected case files in Garth Ennis's early stint. So it's been a couple of years, and then I was just randomly looking through Amazon. I thought, oh, Black Friday's coming up. Let's have a look and see if they've got any Black Friday stuff. And that's when they said, oh, Judge Dredd, the collected case files. And I realised I'd missed the last 4 years worth. And so I've been reading those, and they are incredibly good. Really, really good. So I can highly recommend them. If you enjoyed the Dredd movie, if you got any interest in science fiction at all, especially the black humour that John Wagner's famous for, John Wagner came back and he's writing a lot more as well, then yeah, I'd recommend the Kindle editions, or they did them in hardback as well. They're graphic novels, obviously not, proper novels. But Judge Dredd, the collected case files, I'd definitely recommend getting those. Next question comes from Uraste. Hello, Mr. Jingles, from the land of vampires. Oh, hello. Since I level up in 3 days' time to 28, my question is, what was life like when you were 28? Besides the Navy duties, what was your views and aspirations about life in general? Was it better back then or worse than you think the new days? Well, I was 28. When was I 28? 1998. That's when I was 28. And at that point, I'd been in the Navy for 9 years.
Carry the fire.
So it's difficult to answer that question saying what was life like besides Navy duties, because basically the Navy was my life. 28, so that was pre-2000, 1998. I can't remember an awful lot about it. I remember I still had most of my hair. I was still tall and skinny and not old and fat. I think I was probably, I think between 28 and about 35 were probably the best days of my life. Up until, because, I was young enough to be able to enjoy stuff. I mean, I remember my last couple of years in the Navy when I was like in my 40s. It was a bit of a struggle.
Shit. I got what I need.
Because honestly, the military is a young man's game. And I was really starting to get into it. I think I was still a radio operator at the time, so not particularly happy with my lot. And it was around about that time where I decided, screw this, I'm branch changing to writer, which was a vast improvement. But I say that's the thing, because I can't remember an awful lot of what life was like outside the Navy pre-2000, because I was in the Navy. And as a radio operator, I remember the operations department, which is called the warfare department now. You basically spent, an every 3-year stint, you'd spend 2.5 years at sea and 6 months ashore. And your 6 months ashore would just be training for when you went back to sea. So that was basically my life. I don't have a huge amount of recollection of what stuff was like outside of the mob, because the Navy was my life. Sorry, I can't give you a more precise answer to that, but that's just the way my life was at the time. Although I do remember I did have I did have my psycho-American girlfriend at that time. Oh, that's right. That's when I was living in a flat above an estate agent on Gosport High Street. That was an interesting time in my life. Oh, it's all starting to come back to me now. And I had this crazy American girlfriend who I'd met online, funnily enough, through the game TIE Fighter. Does everybody remember that? Sequel to X-Wing? The superior sequel to X-Wing. I mean, X-Wing was great. It was the Star Wars combat flight simulator thing. TIE Fighter was the sequel, and it was basically an improvement in all regards. And there was this online club, because this was in the early days of the internet, back when, before there was high-speed modems and all that shit, people were using dial-up. And there was this online club called the Emperor's Hammer. It was built around, it's still going, it was built around creating custom missions for TIE Fighter, and people would post these missions. They had a database for all these missions, and you could play them, and everybody was organised into squadrons and wings and assigned to Star Destroyers and blah blah and so on and so on. It was a lot of fun, and that's how I met her, and she came over to live here for 6 months. First I went over she was from Louisiana, and she was at university, at Louisiana State University, and I went over there for a couple of weeks. Had a great time, and then she came over here, and that's when I found out she was a psychopath. She was crazy. Bitch, be crazy. Never, ever, ever put your dick in crazy, folks. No matter how good looking it is, never, ever put your dick in crazy. So that was a stressful 6 months. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so that all happened when I was 28. That much I remember. Anyway, thank you, and moving on. Oh, he says... short story, I just want to say you've been a great help to me all these years while dealing with shit, and your videos were a good breather for me And all the advice you've given along the way helps in one way or another. Just want to thank you for all the time and effort you put into your videos. And more importantly, being a father figure for me when I didn't have one most of my life. Oh, man. So I truly thank you for that and wish you good health. And apparently I'm the reason he looks forward to Mondays. Man, you've got to find a better reason than me to look forward to Mondays.
Got what I need.
But thank you very much. You're entirely welcome. The next question, how we doing for time? 40 minutes. We're going to have to start wrapping this up. Next question comes from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Another YouTuber he follows just met her doppelganger who usually posts on some site called Solely Ventilation or something. Have you had a chance to meet your porn double? Different question. Actually, my very good friend Roy, who I met at the Bovington Tank Museum, that one time that I turned up, got like 3 steps into the door, somebody shouted Jingles, and I was there for the next 5 hours shaking hands. Roy, who served in the Household Cavalry, the Blues and Royals, so he's a tanker. That's where I met him. He basically looked after me, kept bringing me drinks, making sure I was hydrated, covered for me when I had to go for a smoke break. He basically looks like me, but he's taller and skinnier. And he now has a T-shirt that says Jingles Stunt Double. So Roy is my porn double. But anyway, your actual question. If you could do a movie or series cameo, maybe a small role with a line, which small character would you like to portray? Just an extra screaming pseudo-German gibberish at Harrison Ford in the Indiana Jones movies, obviously. Which set team production would you love to see Meat be part of? You may time travel and shapeshift for this. You mentioned it a few times. Yes, small suit now, definitely. We'll get on to that. I would really like, or I would have really liked, to have had a cameo in Star Trek. I know most people probably expect Star Wars, because you wouldn't believe the number of people who've had cameos in Star Wars. Like one of the stormtroopers in the sequels that comes in when Rey is strapped into an interrogation device and making a nasty fuss. That was actually Daniel Craig. He just wanted to be a stormtrooper. Just put me in. I don't even have to say any lines. I just want to be a stormtrooper in Star Wars. And they actually put him in and gave him a line. So I know most people will probably expect that, but there have been so many people who got small cameos in the Star Trek movies. Christian Slater was the lieutenant who woke up Captain Sulu to let them know that the Enterprise was blah 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 and the ship had to blah blah blah, this and this. And Jane Whelan from the Go-Go's got a cameo. She was only on screen a couple of seconds, but people just turn up as Federation officers. They have one line, they walk on, they say the line, they walk off, and you think, hang on, was that? And yeah, usually it was. So I'd love to do that. The only problem is these days it would be in the modern Star Trek, which mostly sucks. Although the Strange New World show isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good. But, God, Star Trek Discovery, God no. It's just awful. Mick Fleetwood had the best cameo in Trek. Mick Fleetwood had a cameo in Star Trek, did he? I missed that one. I know he was in The Running Man, and he's popped up in the movie every now and then, but I'm going to have to Google that one. I did not know that Mick Fleetwood had a Star Trek cameo. I think we'll probably have to call this one the last question, but we're coming up to 43 minutes. So, Azure Lane Thunderchild BC, I'm assuming the AL stands for Azure Lane. Dear Overlord Jingles, yes, I'm recording. Also, as a general of multiple Imperial Guard armies, if you had the money and time, what Guard army will you have? Plus, can you make some up? He currently has multiple 3D printed armies, Elysian Drop Troops, Death Corps, Custom Catgirl Army. Of course you do. And just started a Praetorian Force. There are some images in the... I've got some Praetorians. Unless I'm thinking of the wrong thing. Those are basically the British Army circa, Boer War era, the redcoats with the white pith helmets. Those are the Imperial Guard Praetorians, aren't they? I hope I'm right, because I've definitely got some of those. I haven't gotten around to painting them yet. There's an Australian company that does these custom Imperial Guard regiments. They do all kinds, all the stuff that's mentioned in the books and the lore and the novels, but Games Workshop never got around to actually making. This Australian company does them. They'll do female Imperial Guardsmen, women, but yeah. But what would I do? It would, honestly, I just love the Cadians. I just love the way the Cadians look. Even when I started painting my first Space Marine army, I went for the Space Wolves, specifically because their armour was sort of blue-grey, and it actually looked military, rather than, something like the Smurfs, the Ultramarines, all these garishly bright-coloured. I preferred stuff that looked actual military, and that's why I love the Cadians. But yeah, I quite like the look of the Praetorians as well, because
Shots at us.
colonial British Army. Hopefully, I got that right, and he's not talking about an entirely different regiment. But anyway, that's going to have to be it for today, at least for this episode of Mingles with Jingles. What I do here in the live Q&A, however, is that when I stop recording, I do spend 15 minutes answering a few more questions. So if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, I hope you've enjoyed this Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've all had a great week, and if you want to hear more questions answered, turn up for the monthly Q&A in the Saltmine Discord server. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.
Another day, another dollar.